Well, hey, I'm Zach White. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast, I just want to say a big welcome. This is our very first episode, so I want to extend my sincere gratitude to you for being here to help kick this thing off. I believe that this channel is going to really help make a difference in a lot of people's lives, and that's the only reason I'm doing this. I genuinely want to serve you and serve the community that you're serving through that. Since this is our very first episode, let me tell you exactly what you can expect from our time together. Every week, we're going to talk about leadership. And this resource is designed to support leaders like you, have you specifically in mind. We're going to study great leadership principles. We're going to study great leaders throughout history. We're going to discuss great leadership books and resources. We're going to tackle challenging leadership problems head on. And together, hopefully, we're going to become much better leaders. Great leaders don't just know a lot. Great leaders take action. And so we're going to have an action mindset each and every week. This isn't just about learning more. It's about having the weekly challenge, the weekly encouragement, the weekly motivation, the weekly accountability to actually take action. You know, you can't just read leadership books and become a great leader. Leadership is so much bigger than that. And my hope is that this weekly time that we spend together provides you with the support you need to lead day in and day out, regardless of your vocational context, which I know you're going to have all sorts of different ways that you might want to apply these leadership principles. And I just want you to stay focused. I want you to stay passionate. I want you to keep fighting the good fight. You know, too many leaders just burn out before they've even realized their full potential or made the fullest impact that they could have made in the world. Too many potential leaders never even take on the responsibility of leadership and fail to become all that they could have, all that they could have been. Too many leaders or potential leaders just throw in the towel. And personally, I refuse to give up. And I am here to tell you, don't give up. Keep fighting the good fight. It's so critical that you do that. If you're here, it's because you're a dedicated individual wanting to make a difference in this world with your one and only life. And you're not going to settle for mediocrity. You are a leader. And we're in this together. All right. I'm not just a student of leadership. I'm a practitioner. I'm in the trenches with you. So if you're ready, let's officially kick this thing off. I'm going to try to keep each piece of content every week to about 15 to 20 minutes just to honor your time. And so we'll go fast and furious. And then if you're one of those people who likes to go a lot faster, you can always watch multiple episodes at a time if you need. All right, today we are going to try to attempt to define leadership. That is a tall order, I know, but this is so important, and I think it's a great way to kick off our very first episode. How can we be better leaders if we don't know what the target on the wall is? We have got to understand what a leader truly is. So let's start by debunking the most common misconception. I think this is what I hear all the time. Not necessarily explicitly, but it's what people imply. And this is that leadership is not the same as management. Leadership is not the same as management. A leader is not the same as a boss. All right, this has been, I think, pretty well documented within leadership circles and strategists. And it's good. I'm so glad that it is because it's so important. Steve Jobs once said that management is about persuading people to do things that they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought that they could. It's so true. Let me tell you something. If you're a young emerging leader, you do not want to be a boss. You don't. You do not want to just be an employer. Those are incredibly limiting. If you are just a boss, then you have employees working for a paycheck. That's pretty shallow. If you're a leader, then you have something so much better. You have followers, not just followers, but followers with a buy-in of something. If you're a good leader, you have followers who would be willing to take that hill with you, right? If you're a great leader, you have followers who would lay down their lives with and for you. I mean, in other words, leadership it's just so much deeper than management. It is so much deeper. Managers, supervisors, bosses, whatever you want to call them, they might be able to motivate you through money or through status or even fear that you might lose your job, you need to perform. But they tend to miss the most important motivators, the ones that really cut through. Leadership is different. I love John Maxwell's definition. He says a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, shows the way. Think about that for a second. That definition says three things, three very important things. First, a leader decides what to do or where to go. They know the way. Second, a leader decides, or a leader should embody that decision themselves. They're not just saying that, they're actually living that out. So they go the same way that they know. And then third, a leader effectively communicates that decision or vision to others around them. So they show the way. And I really think that's a pretty great summary of leadership. But let's keep pressing. I think there's more that we can get into. Because leadership isn't just about something you do. It's something you internalize. It's about something that you believe in to the core of your being. And that's where we need to go next. Jim Collins, who is a brilliant student of business and leadership, you should read every single one of the books that he has worked on. He identifies something in his research that he calls level 5 leadership. He writes that level 5 leaders channel their ego needs away from themselves and into the larger goal of building a great company. Their ambition is first and foremost for the institution, not themselves. This is so important. Collins and his research team, which was pretty extensive, spent over 5 years conducting painstaking research to understand great companies. And one of the chief discoveries was that great companies had leaders who were concerned with the cause more than they were with themselves. I want to repeat that, okay? Because this is probably the number one thing you could take away. Great leadership, according to Collins, is about being more concerned with the cause than you are with yourself. Okay, that is powerful. That is critical. If you searched inward for yourself right now and you felt like you were not more passionate about that and you were way more passionate about your own self-interest, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a difficulty leading people. So that's good. In other words, leadership is about dying to yourself for a greater good. So that may be the first question you got to ask yourself. Am I willing to die to myself and my own wants and desires for the greater good? Okay, that's when you're going to have people who want to follow you. Former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, I have a big love of studying Navy SEALs and Rangers and everything that they do. They just have a sense of sacrifice that I just am really drawn to. Great leadership principles that those men and women write about. Jocko Willink is maybe one that you're familiar with. He wrote a book, Extreme Ownership, that he said leaders must always operate with the understanding that they are part of something greater than themselves and their own personal interests. In other words, he 100% confirms what Collins wrote. You've got to be able to have just a totally different mindset. If you're going to charge into enemy lines, if you're going to be willing to lay down your life, there's a different depth that you've got to have, more than just the bottom line, something way, way, way deeper. If you believe in something so much that you would actually be willing to sacrifice your life for it, okay, then you might be getting somewhere. You're close. You're real close. That's leading with a cause, something that's then bigger than yourself. I've got a friend in the finance world. He does very well. He's a great guy. For a while there, I think he struggled to see the worth of the finance world and his role in it. And then I've noticed a shift in him and how he thinks about it. He says he doesn't view his job as just making more money or helping other people make more money. He always says that he's fighting poverty, and that's how he views it. And man, that is powerful, to view that kind of role as being on the front lines of helping people break the cycle of poverty. That is powerful. And that's a cause you could get behind. That's a cause that you could help other people you work with get behind, right? It goes deeper than the surface. Historian Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a masterful work. I've been working through it. And she was observing and comparing the leadership of four historical giants: Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Lyndon B. Johnson. And she put all of their lives pretty much right next to each other in comparison, and studied the consistencies, the inconsistencies of their journey. And Goodwin raised the question through her work. She said, do leaders shape the times, or do the times summon their leaders? That's a great question, right? And what she concluded is that these four remarkable leaders, while vastly unique from one another, were united by a fierce ambition and perseverance. You know, there's a word for that. It's resilience. Resilience is the ability to sustain ambition in the face of adversity. I'm going to repeat that, all right? Resilience is the ability to sustain ambition in the face of adversity. Goodwin observed that all four of these leaders were guided first by a moral purpose, which was critical. They all had that thing that grounded them morally, and then they remained resilient despite the adversity they all faced. It was like the cocktail for a great leader in their turbulent time. And to be clear, each of these men experienced profound challenges, things that I know a lot of us may never experience. Abraham Lincoln had a near-death, near-suicidal depression. He faced poverty most of his life. Theodore Roosevelt lost his wife very young at the time, and mother on the same day. Franklin Roosevelt was struck with polio. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Lyndon Johnson suffered a nearly fatal heart attack. And here's the thing, did they quit? Did they throw in the towel? No, absolutely not. They kept going. They were resilient. They remained passionately ambitious in the face of all that adversity. One of my leadership heroes, Winston Churchill, said, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. If you're going through hell, keep going. Keep going. I want to leave you with one last definition of leadership, one that I initially had a difficult time accepting. It's a definition of leadership that was taught by one of the most documented leaders in all of ancient history. In fact, this leader birthed a movement that has grown to over 2.6 billion people, which, for reference, that's nearly 1/3 of the global population. Many consider this individual to be the greatest leader in all of history. I think the evidence might actually really support that claim. And you may, at this point, know who I'm referring to. I'm referring to Jesus. Now, I know that there are many of us who aren't particularly religious, but I think one of the marks of a great leader is the ability to learn from anyone, regardless of whether you agree with everything that they teach. So here's a man who led a massive, massive revolution spanning thousands of years and growing to nearly 1/3 of our global population. That is wild to think about. Personally, I can't think of a more impressive leadership resume than that. So the question is, did Jesus offer any leadership advice? Anything that we could actually learn from? And the answer is yes, actually. In fact, his advice may surprise you. It surprised me. Here's what he said. All right, this is actually found in the Bible. He said, whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Okay, I want to read that again. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. And okay, you're thinking like, what? What? I don't understand that. In other words, what Jesus is getting after is that if you want to be a great leader, serve others. If you want to be a great leader, serve others. In fact, Jesus went on to say that if you want to be a great leader, you're going to need to sacrifice your entire life to serve, which is actually exactly what he ended up doing. If you know, kind of the historical records show that Romans crucified him. they were threatened by his leadership, and they thought he might just lead this revolution and the nature of his cause and everything that they knew about him. So they killed him. And interestingly, without delving into the entire narrative, Jesus' sacrificial leadership was the precise spark that gave the movement its momentum. It's like that was the key for it to just be unleashed. And scholars note how the early Christian movement grew at an unprecedented rate, like nothing they've ever seen before. Within 3 centuries, Christianity went from 0.000015% of the population to more than half of the Roman Empire. I mean, at that time, it's like almost half the world, right? Not to mention, Jesus' leadership created a movement that wasn't just, in the pan and then gone. It endured for thousands of years to this day. That in and of itself is unprecedented. Literally creating something that lasts generation after generation after generation. I know that is, for so many of us, that's the goal. That's what drives us. We want to create something that has a legacy and that lasts. I mean, there are millions of churches worldwide comprising billions of Christians. And I mean, what Jesus started is absolutely massive, massive. We know from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that only 36% of companies last 10 years, and about 21% survive to see their 20th anniversary. And beyond that, the U.S. Census Bureau reports that only about 12% of companies are older than 26 years. Other studies, which are harder to really, validate, but they show that only about 0.5% of all companies have what it takes to last 100 years. So maybe there's something to pay attention to when it comes to sacrificial or servant leadership. Maybe that's the key to truly motivating and inspiring others around us. It's really challenging to define something like leadership. Everything we already discussed, we can already tell. Leaders come in all shapes and sizes. The context in which we lead comes in all shapes and sizes. But it does seem that there are some fundamental truths to leadership that we can all hold on to that can help us try to define what leadership really is. So let's recap for today. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, shows the way. A leader dies to themselves for a greater good. A moral purpose is what guides a leader, and they remain resilient despite the adversity they will inevitably face. If you want to be a great leader, truly a great leader, then serve others. Be a sacrificial leader. All right, that's it for today. Before we part ways for the week, I would love to send you my list of leadership resources. These are resources that have really served me in my journey. When I started back, I got tapped on the shoulder at 18 years old to lead, and I had no idea what I was doing. And it was scary, and I was having to lead people who were twice my age, 3 times my age, and I just felt lost in that. And so really, I just started this journey that brought me where I am today, where I just started feasting off anything I could get my hands on and just being a sponge, absorbing as much as I could about leadership to kind of figure out what the heck, how do I do this thing? And I would love to take that list and share it with you. If you've been a seasoned leader, you might have already gotten through some of this list, which would be phenomenal. Maybe you're starting from the ground up, or maybe there's a little nugget in there that you have never explored. No matter where you're at, I hope that you take advantage of that. I want to get it in your hands. And obviously, it's free. It's just my way of helping you sort of have a playbook in front of you, something that you could be working on in tandem with our time that we spend weekly. So maybe you might find that you have some things to add to that list. I'd love to hear what those are too. Maybe you could leave that in the comments, things that have really shaped you as a leader. One thing that I've learned is you may have heard that readers are leaders. I don't know if I fully am on board with that. I don't think every reader is a leader, but I do think that great leaders are great learners. And I have seen that over and over again. So let's at least commit to being great learners and allowing that to fuel whatever leadership that we have in store. I put together this list of things that you can find if you're on YouTube. If you're interested in it, you can click the link below if you're on that, or if you're listening to this through podcast, which I normally would do. You can just go to my website, zachwhite.com, and you'll find it there as well. All right, one last thing. If today's content served you, would you consider liking, commenting, leaving a review, or sharing it with others that you think it might serve? I know that you probably, if you're used to YouTube or podcast content, people ask that of you, but it's because it actually really helps. It's pretty much the only way this thing can continue to happen. And so if you would consider doing that, that would really serve. That would really serve this community as we strive to help each other and serve people that we collectively need to serve. So thank you in advance for your support. Also, as this channel is new, it would be so helpful to me personally if you left a comment telling me what your experience in leadership is like right now. What is your context? What are you facing? What resonates with you? As I mentioned, this is a community of leaders, right? And we're striving to improve, and that's going to take all of us sharing our experiences. So I hope that you'll continue to hang out with us and continue to share with us your experience. And that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.